When you have cancer, the ups and downs of life go into hyperdrive. You feel terrified, stoic, and even elated at times. I'm not sure whether this roller coaster is caused by all the chemotherapy drugs waging a war inside your body, or if perhaps it's just because the Grim Reaper is giving you a little wink. I was diagnosed with cancer 1 week before Christmas in 2024. It's been a wild, unpredictable ride, to say the least. 3 things are very constant, though. Number 1, the treatment ain't cheap. Number 2, people are really nice to you because literally no one wants cancer. And number 3, in our culture of oversharing everything on social media, you feel compelled to get the word out there. Writing about cancer is traditionally very optimistic and positive in nature, which is understandable because people need hope for this particularly nasty, life-threatening ailment. However, I wanted to try something a little bit different. I've attempted to document 12 separate tales that deal with a theme of how the character feels and reacts to his disease. Some of the writing is very loosely based on my own experiences going through treatment. However, most of it I just cooked up inside my head. The particular flavor of cancer in the tales is made up. The city setting is vague, and the protagonist doesn't even have a name. This is intentional to gloss over the unnecessary details and get completely inside the main character's head. What's he thinking? What are his fears? What are his regrets? Is there any hope for the future? Well, the book could loosely be classified as Christian fiction, since religion is a part of the main character's journey. I've avoided being too overly preachy, so people of all denominations and creeds are of course most welcome to peruse the tales. The initial stories may sound quite grim, but please stick around, and there might even be some spark of light toward the end there. I hope that you will enjoy Cancerika. The first Cancerika tale is about getting that bad news at the hospital. Most people who have dealt with cancer will know that the news happens quick. It's for the most part totally unexpected. It's a wild chain of events that culminates with you sitting in a hospital chair wondering what on earth happened. For me, this tale is highly personable. I went to see the doctor because my back was screwed up after the Bangkok Marathon. I came out with cancer a few hours later. I hope that you will find this first tale interesting, and please feel free to leave any comments or feedback. This is the first one, and the next 11 are still being written, so I'm highly open to suggestions for improvement to the story. If you happen to have your own cancer experience you'd like to share, that'd be wonderful too. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can catch more tales as they are released. Please enjoy the first tale of Cancerika, Diagnosed. Cancerika, Tales of Survival, Despair, and Hilarity. Written and narrated by Beauheart. Tale number 1, Diagnosed. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord. This place shall no more be called Topheth, or the valley of Ben Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. Jeremiah 19:6. I first felt the pain a few months ago. It's like someone stuck a small dagger right smack dab in the middle of my back. I've been doing 5 reps of ab rolls and some deep squats at the gym. I went for a stroll to the vending machine to grab one of those zero sugar sodas I like. Then it hit me so bad in the back I thought someone was trying to mug me. The pain spread up and down the spine in a bizarre tingling sensation, but I didn't think too much of it at the time, except that I probably needed to work on my squat form. It's no big deal because people got minor injuries lifting all the time. I wouldn't even need to pop any pills. The pain in my back went away in a few days, but little pings and pangs started popping up and down my ribcage from time to time. I just figured I was getting old. Early 30s, the new 50 in my goofed up generation. We truly are cursed. About a month after that, my teeth were constantly bleeding in the morning. I was spitting out blood so much I thought there was some sort of weird infection in my mouth. I quit smoking years ago, so I thought it was just the polluted air of the city wreaking havoc on my gum line. Let the politicians figure out how to deal with that, because there was nothing I could do about the nerfed up environment except reusing plastic bags. Maybe I should go see my dentist more than once a year, though. I tried brushing my teeth 3 times a day and actually started flossing for the first time in years. I thought that would definitely fix it. Then came this weird rash on my bottom left lip. It started out as a small itchy scab that I just couldn't resist picking. Blood would come rushing out of the wound, and I would lap it up with my tongue like some rabid dog. I wasn't exactly sure how I got this one, so I started doing research on spider bites. My dump out of an apartment certainly had a vermin problem, so it didn't seem out of the question. Seeing how spiders usually couldn't do this much damage, apparently, I looked online at other causes. Did you know you could get chlamydia on your mouth? I didn't until I turned off the old Google Safe Search and started looking at some rather heinous imagery displayed across my search results, like some Cambodian brothel. Woman been out of the question since I went volcel, voluntarily celibate, earlier in the year, but it might have been from an old dirty encounter. Too many drunken nights at Club Rumors in years past, picking up MILF skeezers before they threw on the house lights at 2 a.m. I've been pretty reckless with the chicks in those days, and you could tell a lot of them were downright nasty. Yeah, that must have been what's up with my mouth. I was too embarrassed to go to the clinic about some minor STD. Plus, I figured my mouth would just clear up on its own. According to my more unscrupulous buddies in years past, I guess some STDs work like that. If anyone at work asked, I could just say I nicked myself shaving. Beats the alternative of telling them you were a sex pest in your younger days. And then it sort of came to a head early this month. The back pain came roaring back like a freight train slamming into me in the middle of the night. It was impossible to just sit straight up without excruciating pain running through my spine. So I had to roll around in my bed to gather the momentum to extricate myself into an upright position. It was like I had turned into a cockroach overnight, a la Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, although I wasn't a secret homosexual, of course. Getting out of bed was brutal. I managed to stand up by grappling with the spin bike handles that sat next to my bed, but once I took a step, the muscles in my back completely locked up. I really had to take a piss and it was starting to dribble down my leg, but I had an agonizing 15 feet to go until I made it to the toilet. Pulling down my drawers so I could use the commode somehow resulted in even worse muscle spasms going up and down on my back, but did manage to drain the lizard. I fumbled around for some probably expired Tylenol in a box under the sink and quickly popped 2 of those suckers. It was 5 a.m. and I had to head out to work in a couple hours. I tried watching some of my true crime YouTube vids to help crash while lying in bed, but I just kept dreading getting out of bed again. Being so anxious about the whole affair, I couldn't sleep a wink. Sure enough, getting out of bed was a Sisyphean task after lying flat for only 30 minutes, but I managed to make it downstairs for my breakfast of hard-boiled eggs and coffee. The pain subsided when I commuted to work that morning. I thought everything would be all right. A temporary embarrassment, like some pizza-faced teenager popping a zip before morning homeroom sitting next to the jocks. But the next day, the morning pain got a bit worse, and the day after just a little bit worse than the day before. Sort of a slow downward spiral. Those puny Tylenols weren't putting much of a dent in. But hey, I was able to function as a member of productive society. I could get to work on time. I could exercise a little, although I had to seriously dial it down at the gym. And I could do all the little things you had to do in life, even though the pain was always on the front burner. What could possibly go wrong? That's when I had my little accident going to work. I hesitate to even call it an accident because it makes me sound like a drama queen. It's more of a minor dust-up. Coming up onto the street off the subway, I was fumbling with my phone, trying to play some classic Guns N' Roses to get hyped for work. And I stepped in front of some soy boy on one of those e-scooter deals. Buddy plowed directly into my chest with his dorky little helmet sticking out in front of him. It knocked the wind clear out of me like getting hit across the sternum with a baseball bat. The fruity little scooter kicked up on its back wheel and went careening into the guardrail, with the bespectacled driver stumbling over me. I hit the ground like a ton of bricks. "Watch where you're going, my guy," he yelled as I lay writhing on the sidewalk. I wanted to holler at him, tell him that he should have stayed home and played his Nintendo Switch, tell him to watch out for regular people going about their business, tell him that his wife's boyfriend wouldn't appreciate his recklessness. But I couldn't even get a hiss of air out of my lungs. It felt like my chest had caved in as muscle spasms rippled up and down my back. The scooter dork dusted off his skinny jeans, grabbed his e-scooter, and zipped down the road. He probably made some upvoted Reddit post about how a probable Trump supporter got in the way of his morning e-bike sesh. He's most certainly unaware of the troublesome chain of events that followed. A burly man who looked like he worked construction stood over me. "Hey man, you good?" I rolled around a bit and tried to stand up on my feet. The spasms in my back came back, and it felt like my entire body was locking into rigor mortis. "Let me help you up, bro," the man said as he grabbed me by the shoulders with his Popeye-like arms and set me upright. Once I was on my feet, I could actually breathe, and I mumbled "Thank you, sir," to the brawny gentleman. I put one foot in front of the other and was thankful the spasms subsided. Walking to work, I was really struggling to regain my mental composure. I know I'm not a particularly large person, but getting knocked over by a 130-pound beta male was quite embarrassing. I figured I was just having a bad day. I sat down for a morning team meeting that normally involved me zoning out and thinking about my crypto trades for the week ahead. As I took my seat, everything around me felt like it was muted and in slow motion. It was an incredibly bizarre feeling. Kind of like that old Twilight Zone episode where the guy stops time to rob the bank. My boss was rambling on about the latest ransomware attack, I think, but he was sounding like Charlie Brown's mom, totally incomprehensible. A horrible bolt of pain began poking out of my lower rib cage. It was like the famous scene in Alien where the little demon's about to bust out of your chest cavity. I stood up to see if I could ease out the pangs, but the back spasms came back along with some new forms of fun, excruciating pain. This time I felt daggers jamming on the back of my eyeballs in a rapid staccato motion. I went ass over tea kettle in front of the coffee maker before I even managed to stand up all the way. I had my eyes closed with my face firm planted on the floor, but I could still understand all the commotion and muffled screams. What happened? Get him some air. Is he drunk? I sort of wished I was completely loaded at 8:30 a.m. Then there would have at least been a good reason to be acting the fool like this. But as the situation progressed, there was no logic or reason other than the fact that a minor bump from an e-scooter somehow resulted in the most crippling pain of my life. 2 of the office building's security guards were in the meeting room real quick. They were shining lights in my eyes as they tried to sit me up in a chair. I could tell they were fellow ex-military because their training kicked automatically in. You could tell by the look on their faces. I hoped they knew what to do with me. Hey, sir, can you hear me? All I could respond with was a zzz sort of whistle through my teeth with my eyes stuck wide open. I was more or less conscious, but totally discombobulated. The ambulance got there shortly after, and they began strapping me into the gurney. Everyone in the office was standing around with their hands on their hips, wondering what the hell was going on. I slowly drifted back into reality, and all the pain faded into dull background noise. I understand how my situation must look to everyone else. The introverted IT guy finally had a nervous breakdown. He was also kind of a weird veteran who had this faux masculine 2 online persona. At least I didn't bring an AR-15 and start shooting up the place. There were soft rumors from the staff to my left and right as the EMTs rolled me into the elevators. Don't worry, take the rest of the day off, my big C-suite boss said as the elevators closed behind me with the EMTs. Gee, thanks, Mr. Vandershoot, I thought. I'd never been in an ambulance before, and I never had medical professionals fussing over me before. Even when we were doing casualty training in the Marine Corps, medical procedures all seemed a little theatrical and silly. Like it was never going to happen to me. But it was happening to me then in that ambulance. It was very different than what I expected. The EMTs were wiring me up with what I guess was something to see if my heart was still working. I recall reading that if you had pain in your chest and couldn't breathe, you were basically having a heart attack and pretty much dead. Was I dead? Was this the pre-death purgatory hell trial like in Jacob's Ladder? Maybe I was actually dying from an IED on that godforsaken route in Afghanistan, and everything in my life up to that point had been a dream. I think, therefore, I am. No, I guess I wasn't pushing up daisies just yet. Did you take any drugs today? The female EMT asked. No, ma'am, I never take drugs. Am I having a heart attack or... No, sir, I don't think so. We're almost at the hospital. Just try to relax. She began pressing around my chest. You feel any pain when I do this? She asked. No, but you gotta buy me dinner first before you start touching. My lame attempt at humor did not elicit a response. She then moved to the bottom part of the rib cage and started rubbing the cartilage. A volcano of pain came roaring up my entire chest. I started cramping so bad I began to gasp. Okay, I'm sorry, we're almost there, she mumbled. I wiggled to my left and right on the gurney, trying to ease the debilitating pain out of my body, but to little avail. I stared at the monitor gizmo that was beating with my heart, half expecting the thing to flatline. I admit to being a bit frightened because I had no idea what was going on. If I was a drunken, fentanyled-up vagrant, there would have at least been a reason for all this business. But I thought I maintained a pretty healthy lifestyle. Weights, cardio, even avoiding sea oils to stay on the safe side. I was still in my early 30s, so not a cantankerous old geezer just yet. What happened? I called out to God for mercy, just to help me get through this one. Wasn't quite ready to go yet, I figured. It's one of the few psalms I'd actually memorized. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. The female EMT gave me a blank stare as I mumbled, but I hoped she understood what I was doing. Perhaps she thought I was being too dramatic, but I think I may have noted a look of empathy on her face. Maybe. The last time I had called out to God like this was that time in Afghanistan, before I was even officially religious. My mind quickly changed gears as I watched the road flying behind me in the rearview window over my feet with the siren blazing. I had the sudden urge to whip out my phone and make some silly Instagram reel with the caption, "Gotta go home early from work, living my best life." Obviously, it would have been the heights of cringe, but I was at least attempting to keep a positive attitude. The ambulance quickly pulled into what felt like a roundabout, and the back doors of the ambulance flew open with a bunch of bubbas and scrubs standing outside. They pulled out my gurney and began conversing in unintelligible medical jargon with the female EMT. I did catch the possible panic attack at the office line, though. That would have been pretty silly if the whole ordeal was just me getting street cucked by some soy boy on an e-scooter. Unfortunately, that ended up not being the cause at all. They rolled me through the double doors into what I assumed was an ER, based on my occasional late-night tournings of old hospital shows. My eyes fixated on the buzzing fluorescent lights above me, anxiously anticipating what were the next steps. Looking around the emergency room, I saw some of the other patients. One was an old Sikh man with a cane being attended to by his daughter. Another was a pregnant woman leaning her face solemnly into her hands. Kind of a bummer, but it looked like the father was not in the picture. I looked to my right off the gurney, and a little boy was standing there, staring right at me, with what looked to be a broken forearm. "What are you here for, mister?" I let out a raspy laugh. "Are you the doctor? Maybe you can tell me." "Did you get in a car accident?" the boy asked innocently. "Something like that." "Leave that man alone, Longerius," a woman piped in. "It's okay. I hope your son is okay," I chimed in as polite as I could. The boy went to sit with his mother, but he continued looking at me with a concerned stare, slightly eerie. A male nurse in dark blue scrubs appeared over me and started staring directly in my eyes. Young guy, about my age. I was immediately grateful that things were moving along and I wasn't just in hurry up and wait mode. "Did you take anything this morning, sir?" he asked. "No, I got hit by some nerd on an e-scooter. Got some terrible pain and went down hard at the office," I managed to reply. Talking clearly sort of hurt my chest as my diaphragm moved up and down with the words. Heaven help me if I had to cough. The pain would have been excruciating. "Oh, I hate those darn scooter things," the man replied with a flamboyant twang. "Where does it hurt now?" "My chest, but really my lower rib cage for some reason." "Okay, let's have a look then." He pulled up my polo shirt, and as it went over my arm, an odd tingling sensation was in both my hands. Almost like I had gotten drunk and fallen asleep wrong on the couch. Then your hands go dead. I don't see any bruising. Does this hurt?" He began rubbing on my ribs. I sucked in air through clenched teeth at the sharp pain. "That's like a 9 out of 10, I yelped. "Oops, sorry about that," the nurse said playfully. "Let's get you an x-ray and see the doctor." I laid back down and watched the fluorescent lights pass by as they wheeled me into a somewhat grimy-looking freight elevator. The stainless steel doors took forever to shut. I wonder how many people had croaked waiting around in this elevator. Perhaps several this morning. They took me into the x-ray room, and there was a heavy-duty blast shield for the x-ray technician facing a bunch of equipment. It reminded me of the one time I got to throw a grenade for training, which was pretty kick-ass. "Can you stand up?" the x-ray tech asked. I tried to sit up, but the pain came roaring up through my spine. My fingertips first began to feel really sensitive, and then both my hands went numb again. I began squirming on the bed like a fish out of water. She tried grabbing my hands to pick me up, but she was just too much of a shorty to get any good leverage. "Jerry, can you help me out over here?" the x-ray tech called through the doors. A burly man in crisp white scrubs came and grabbed me by both armpits. "I got you, baby," he said with a smile. He picked me up without so much as a grunt and set me on my feet. The man sort of looked like an angel of powerlifts and injects juice every other day. It made me grateful that I didn't have to go through the rigmarole of getting off that stupid gurney. I stood against the cold plastic of the x-ray machine and followed the tech's instructions. They seemed to be taking a lot of x-rays, so I was hoping the radiation wouldn't make me infertile or grow a tail. All done, she said after having me turn and contort a number of different ways. You can hop back on there. I climbed onto the gurney, which was thankfully much easier than getting off of it. The orderlies wheeled me back to the ER, where I continued staring at the lights above my head in quiet contemplation. The little boy who was looking at me funny seemed to have disappeared. Even though he freaked me out, I hoped that he was alright. I still had my earbuds in my pocket, so I screwed around with my phone a bit. I checked my work emails at first, and there was a slew of them. People wondering if I was dead or dying or what. The regular taskers were tickling in too, but those were all automated, so hopefully no one was expecting me to bust my ass. I saw a subject line from Mr. Vandershoot's executive assistant. Concern for your well-being. Yikes, better deal with these turds later. I pulled up my YouTube, and the first recommendation on the algorithm was the This Is the End by The Doors, set with the Apocalypse Now intro. You know, the famous intro scene where the napalm is blowing apart the Vietnamese jungle, cross-cut with Charlie Sheen sitting in his Saigon hotel room. They don't make them like that anymore. I was a bit surprised that this clip came up first, since I haven't watched this particular film in years. I guess the tech overlord supervising the algorithm knew something was up with me. I started getting wheeled around again, and they pulled me into a little room off the side of the ER. An older nurse grabbed my arm and unceremoniously stuck a needle in my vein. Just getting some blood, honey, she said. How are you this morning? I've got a lot of pain in my chest and ribs, ma'am. Like 9 out of 10 pain scale. Such good manners. Are you allergic to anything? I shook my head no. Well, since you're being so polite, I've got just the thing for you, the nurse said in a definitively maternal tone. I glanced over and saw a massive-sized syringe that probably would have killed a horse. It was next to a box labeled Demerol. I'm no dope expert, but I thought that this was probably some sort of opiate, like the kind they'd steal from pharmacies in the Matt Dillon flick Drugstore Cowboy to get wasted in some Fleabag hotel room. I wonder what the street value was. She pulled out my right arm and tapped on the vein. Just relax and make a fist for me, the nurse said. She drove the needle in and jammed the plunger down deep. Like most wimps, I usually look away when I get shots in the arm to avoid seeing the needle and blood. But an odd curiosity gripped me, an escalating anticipation of what could happen. All done. We're going to check your blood, and the doctor can hopefully see you in about an hour. Okay, thanks. Whoa, buddy. I was freaking stoned. Felt like my body was floating off the gurney, and I could barely feel any pain. Sweet cherry blossoms were opening up in my head, and I felt miles away from reality. This was some good stuff. No wonder people get dope sick off opiates. I continued laying around the gurney for a while, barely cognizant of who was coming in and out of the ER. I think there was someone who had been in a car accident, or maybe they just took a nasty fall. I saw blood all over their face. I was high as a kite and didn't care about a damn thing. The altered consciousness put me in a state of ease, and I felt like I could handle whatever was coming my way. The doctor's ready to see you now, an orderly said as I started getting wheeled somewhere else again. We got back on the creepy freight elevator out of the ER. This time it felt like we were going to a completely different part of the hospital. Wheeling around while high was kind of exciting in a childish way, but I immediately crashed back into reality as I peeked over my shoes and saw a sign that said Oncology Wing. There's a plethora of signage with "There's hope" and "You got this" in front of ethnically diverse models raising their hands in the background. I think I saw a newly printed sign of 2 AI cats high-fiving each other. 2 middle-aged women were sitting on the puke green upholstery of the hospital chairs, quietly chatting with each other. They both had head coverings on, but they didn't look like members of the Muslim faith, if you know what I mean. The women both turned to me and gave a contemplative look. I politely nodded and looked down slightly to indicate it was not a threat, as if we were crossing paths late at night. The orderly hoisted me into a wheelchair and pushed me towards an office with an open door. A man in his 40s was sitting in there intently staring at a computer monitor through reading glasses. There's a lab microscope off to his side, along with charts about cells, bones, and other random medical stuff that was vaguely rattling around in my brain somewhere. What was this joint? My high school bio class? Hi, how are they treating you out here today? The doctor said. I understand you've got a bit of pain around your chest and ribs. Yeah, Doc, I got hit by one of those dumb e-bike things. It wasn't a big deal, so I don't know why I'm hurting so bad. Not to sound like a moron, but what kind of doctor are you? I was generally confused as to why I was in the part of the hospital that looks like it's for people who are sick on the regular. Before we talk about that, can you tell me if you've been using any narcotics recently? Why did I keep getting asked about this? I must have looked so disheveled I fit the profile of a dope fiend. No, Doc, just the shot they gave me downstairs. Oh, no, I don't mean anything you might have taken a day. Do you frequently take painkillers, opiates? No, sir, not in years. What about anabolic steroids? Some of you young fellas like to get a bit too intense while working out. Do you take a lot of creatine powder? Any exotic supplements I should know about? I mean, I do pre-workout sometimes, but nothing crazy. I think it's just caffeine. Definitely not steroids. The doctor furrowed his brow. He turned back to the computer screen and began pulling up a chart with all sorts of information I didn't understand. It was a clunky Excel spreadsheet that looked like it was designed during the tail end of the W administration. However, the checkered pattern of red blocks in the results column was a pretty universal sign that things were not good. This number here measures your kidney functionality. 100 is normal. 10 means we need you to go immediately into dialysis. You're at a 15. I nodded my head slowly, trying to acknowledge to the doc that, while I was no medical expert, I sort of knew you needed kidneys to live. This here is your white blood cell count. Unfortunately, this is also abnormal. We occasionally see these types of results with chronic drug abusers, but I don't think that scenario applies to you. Have you been having any bleeding or bone pain the last few months? Anything you can think of, even the most minor of ailments. I wanted to tell him that the bleeding was because of some skeezy STD I got. I just needed to brush my teeth more. The bone pain was just because I was playing it fast and loose with my form at the gym. There was explanations for all this stuff. What the hell was I doing in this part of the hospital? I'm a healthy dude. I capitulated, though. Yeah, so I've been having some problems with nosebleeds, rashes, and my back has been bothering me for months. I'm sorry, son. Have you heard of a disease called ceratoma? No? Is that like a mole on your head or something? I inquired awkwardly. No. It's when your bone marrow is producing irregular plasma cells that attack vital organs in your body. It eventually works its way into the lymph nodes. The malignant proteins in the bloodstream also break down the calcium on your bones, cause very painful lesions. So, is this like something you can fix today, Doc? Not exactly. It's a tough disease, but new technology in recent years has made it very treatable. I'm sorry to let you know this, but everything is pointing towards the stage 3 ceratoma cancer diagnosis. I sat there with my mouth agape like some rube. The shot of opiates wearing off and my mind spinning up like a top. There's no way I could get the big C. I misbehaved in my youth and military days, but I thought I really turned things around. I knew people who got cancer, but they were all super old and checking out anyway. But hey, maybe I deserved all this. Maybe I just have to deal with it. I thought about the algorithm playing that opener from Apocalypse Now. Was God letting me know I was coming home? Or was he trying to hype me up for battle? Maybe this was like Martin Sheen's character when he got the orders to go after Colonel Kurtz. Everyone gets everything he wants. I wanted a mission, and for my sins, they gave me one. Thank you, doctor. Can I please get a minute to use the bathroom? I managed to eke out. Oh, yes, of course. The doctor called for the orderly. I was wheeled toward the bathroom. Before we got halfway to the head, I started dry heave, and a disgusting amount of bile started pouring through my nasal cavity. I got you, man, the orderly said, handing me a plastic bag. So after getting probably the toughest news of my life, I bravely corked in the middle of the hospital lobby in a wheelchair, unable to even hold out for the private confines of the bathroom. What courage and determination. I always figured it would be something like this. End of tale. Thank you for having listened to this tale of Cancerika. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below whether you like the story or not. A forthcoming ebook, print book, and audiobook with all 12 tales will be released later in 2025 on Amazon and Audible. Details will be posted below in the description when it's released. You can shoot your mouth off at me over on X. I'm at Beauheart. Please visit friendlyfrogpress.com to see our collection of ebooks, paperbacks, and audiobooks that are for sale at Amazon and Audible. Until next time, this is Paul Beauheart signing off.